My name is Alex Challans, and I'm the CEO of a company called Resonance, which owns the Quantum Insider. We've been delighted to work on this event. We've been absolutely blown away. 3 or 4 years ago, myself and my business partner, Evan, who introduced us earlier at the start, were sat in a cold office in Toronto, and we were having a panic. We were trying to work out how we could get 100 people to talk about quantum in South Beach, and we did it. And this was 3 or 4 years ago. Now, today, we've had over 350 people in the room, 70 on waitlist, and I'm so excited to see the passion from everyone here for quantum today. $60 billion has been committed by governments to quantum. 6.5 billion so far this year, 2.5 times what we saw last year. In September alone, more capital was raised for quantum than in the whole of 2020. So what better time to speak with Hillary Matchett, the Chief Investment Officer of Quantum Coast Capital, to guide us through the wonders of investing in quantum. Quantum Coast Capital is a preeminent venture fund focused purely on quantum here in Palm Beach. Shall we get stuck in? Let's start, shall we? So I would love to hear how you went from being a senior finance professional into the wonderful world of quantum.
Oh, wow, okay. I didn't know you were going to go there. Well, so let's see. I spent 2.5 decades working in corporate America, primarily with public equities. And I had a passion for really disruptive technology and unstoppable forces and things that I felt that we needed to share with people and really accelerate. And I found myself going earlier stage, and ultimately landing solely in investing in private markets. And then what I found was, especially in disruptive tech, that there was a very specific need for private capital to come in and be good stewards for the technology that was going to better society as a whole. And I felt that that was part of my maybe moral compass, but also part of my investment thesis as a person. I partnered up with Dimitri, who was just on stage as our chief science officer, who's beyond unbelievable with the physics and the condensed matter theory that he has been working on for decades. Matt, who is a phenomenal CEO, entrepreneur, owner-operator. And I thought, this is something, this quantum thing, a couple of years ago, is something that people really need to know more about. Now, how did I get to know about it? Because of you and Evan, because of Quantum Insider, which is theoretically, for those of you who have never been to the Quantum Insider information, it's the Bloomberg of the industry. And to me, placing capital in any industry starts with information, it starts with human capital, and then of course it comes with actual finance. So I would say the first thing that got me into this was Quantum Insider, the cadence at which information was coming out, the dollars getting bigger and bigger, the commas becoming multipliers. And then there was a little bit, and we talked about this earlier today, a little bit of that excitement of what quantum technologies can do to enhance humanity, but then the fear of what quantum technologies can do to really be a problem, especially for us here in the United States. So it became a little bit of a passion project and then a lot of love. And it's been really exciting to start with the information, move into the human capital, which is what we're doing this whole day, right, with the Florida College and University Alliance, the Florida Opportunities Fund, and getting the kids and the youth of today workforce ready for what I think is going to be literally the next revolution. There is no doubt in my mind that this is the disruptive tech that will take us into the next generations to come.
So you've had to work with some of the most discerning people on how they invest their capital, invest their wealth. What are the ways that one can look at investing in such an ephemeral technology as quantum?
So most people I encounter want to think about venture. So I'm going to talk about venture. You've heard from a lot of CEOs of publicly traded companies and different modalities on the hardware side. I'm going to, for the moment, for this chat, talk a little bit more about the application side, the earlier stage. So I'm actually as early with Matt and Dimitri as pre-seed. So we will look at somebody's idea that has no revenue, we're working on a business model, et cetera. The way I look at it from the complexity of investors is they want their, get rich money sort of to be quick and transparent. But there's also sort of evergreen foundations, force multiplier sort of capital families that want to put real dollars into academia, research, and things that will advance, sort of for generations to come. So if I talk to somebody about a venture investment, it immediately is, well, what stage, what's going to be my return on capital, when are you going to make distributions, blah, 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 blah. If I talk to somebody about, would you have been able to invest in the internet before the internet? Would you have thought about it? Could you see it? Could you touch it? Could you feel it? Do you have information like the Quantum Insider provides us to show that this is not just a thought, it is here and it is growing? Would you want to have that conversation? And to that, of course, the answer is yes. Also here, and I'm going to brag a little bit about our backyard, and I think you need to have an office outside of Toronto in Palm Beach County, plug. But we have such amazing leaders that live here, have offices here, are even retired CEOs who said, this is something that strategically we all need to be investing in. So we can pull on the levers of multi-industry, and we can pull on the cross-sector synergies right here with the resources that we have and really make an impact.
Maybe to kind of complete that, so we talked a little bit about the venture side that's getting in, clearly before a public company. What else is there across the stack? Well, you've got public companies you can invest in today. Several of them have gone public via SPAC. Others with a traditional listing. We have two of the CEOs today with us of those public companies, so thank you so much for joining. It's also would be remiss of me to not note that some of the largest tech companies in the world are seriously investing in quantum. So your hyperscalers, your Googles, your AWSs, and your Microsofts. And I think one of the challenges is, how does one allocate capital in this scenario? You have big players, you've got public companies, you've got private funds. How do you think about that? How have you...
Well, I like to start on the earlier side of the spectrum, right? So I'm doing more of the pre-seed, seed, and Series A. I think the public companies, a lot of people have exposure to that because they are your big tech names. I have a strong sense that some people might be buying, or at least watching, the stock price of IonQ and D-Wave after these presentations, and others, of course. But I think that from a holistic standpoint of the venture side and the private companies, again, we need to focus on incubating and accelerating startup companies that are going to provide all of the foundational picks and shovels around the different modalities. So we've talked a little bit here with these different companies, whether it be trapped ion, neutral atom, semiconductor, all the different physics modalities of the compute side, but everything else around it that we've talked about that need to all be there and be advanced and be scalable, because we are in a race. We need to have quantum supremacy. We need to make sure that we've got the ability to build up those companies, scale them, move them along quickly, and the investment dollars need to come in now. So building out, I would say, the private pipeline is very, very, very important. I think the frothy big public companies have the access to the capital. They know what they're doing. But we need to get the smaller, man and woman. By the way, I don't know if Lamont's still here, but I love that everyone has stuck with that statistic that I asked him about, which was the 48 PhDs that are graduated every year. How many of them are women? Lamont, are you here? I can't see anything, sorry, you're all a blur. It's certainly less than half. I will get you the actual statistic, but all of these numbers show that there's still work to do. And so placing capital on the private side and the early side, I think, is imperative.
So I want to
By the way, this is a chat. I'm gonna start interviewing you. What do you think about the public versus private stack?
Like any investments, you're basically determining what your upside is. I think both are fantastic investments, and I'm not providing advice here. But let me explain why. There are very few technologies that you can see the level of upside that you would see in a technology like quantum. I have watched as founders have scrapped around in 2018, 2019 to try and build just the first idea from the lab into commercialization. My clients include many of those who've taken their first marketing campaign, taken their first deployment with an enterprise client. And I can tell you, Evan said it earlier, it does feel like you're part of something special, like you look back at the black and white photographs of Apple in the 1980s. It really does feel like that when you walk around some of these companies. Mm-hmm. So you can take your own preference on whether you invest in public markets, in VC, in the larger players, and I recommend to explore all of them. But the one thing I would say is that we are very early to the game with quantum. There is so much opportunity. One of the things I've been interested in watching on the AI side is how it's completely changed the speed of what's happening, how quickly money is raised, how frothy it does feel. But I think it's a little bit different in quantum, I would say. There's a different skill set you need. Can we kind of maybe talk into some of those case studies of what do you need to do when you look at a quantum investment?
Well, I pull on all the resources I can because I'm the first person to say that I'm a team and I'm only as strong as those around me. Again, you've met with Dimitri, who was on stage just in the last panel. My other partner, Matt. We have an amazing strategic advisory committee and board, and these are people that are part of our team, and they come from all walks of life, and the ability to work alongside, I know Ron and Amanda are somewhere over there, I can't see you, hi. The ability to collaborate and understand the science and why it would be something that could be and should be invested in and looked at, or if there is a pivot that needs to happen, those are the resources that we always look at. These are not quick decisions. We're going to throw some money at a startup because it's cool. We're doing deep diligence. We have built out a dashboard internally with almost 100 companies. A lot of them are just too early. They're not fully baked. Some of these are students, right, who just can't put all the time and the focus in it. But then there's also really amazing senior executives who are leaving big companies and government institutions and the military, and they just need capital. And we know that they have a very unique ability to place whatever it is on the application side, on the picks and shovels side, even in some of the modalities, as to why this is something that would make an awful lot of sense to look into. But the community is small, and it needs to be bigger. And you and Evan have done such an amazing job of creating that community, but we're very limited in the number of VCs that are doing what we're doing. I mean, sometimes people say, I think you said it earlier, that we're maybe one of the only pure play VCs in quantum tech. And when we say pure play, we mean quantum computing, which is the hardware side, the picks and shovels and all that comes around it. And then we go so far as to say quantum inspired. So anything that's application based that is going to be leveraging off of that. But it's not necessarily a drift that, AI and all these things, that's a bad word. We don't want that, right? So if we come across something that belongs in somebody else's portfolio, we will send it to them. We are focused solely on the small community that we hope will become exponentially larger at looking at this technology that is so mission critical to us, especially in the national security realm.
So I've got a potentially controversial question.
Oh dear.
So how do you decide? So when you may have seen the documentary that we're going to be publishing on the streaming platforms earlier today. We had the pleasure of speaking with 3 Nobel Prize winners. There's been 3 more announced. Everyone had a different opinion. These are some of the smartest people in the world, and they all have their own view. We also had a panel with different CEOs, different people, different modalities of quantum. Everyone has their own opinion. So, in this environment, how do you make good choices?
I don't think this is the type of industry where winner takes all. I think some will take most. But given the need for us as a nation to advance our research and our scale quickly, we're going to have to spread the wealth across the modalities, across the different companies. We're going to have to lift each other up, or else we're going to lose. So I think that there is an embedded knowledge that we will probably have some that are more scalable, or some that are probably a little bit less, exciting maybe to some. But we have to put the capital there. And also, we've got to build the workforce that's going to then be trained, so when they do scale, that there are people there that can actually run with it. Dimitri and Matt and I, we go back and forth all the time. We kind of think that this is the perfect time, and that sounds a little salesy, so I apologize. But I think 5 years ago, to put a lot of capital into quantum tech would have been maybe a little early. Not necessarily saying that across the board we would have been too early, but I think it would have been a little early. I think if we wait another 3 to 5 years, we're too late. And that's what I fear most, is that we've got to make sure that the investments come, and we've got to make sure that the federal government is aware of what we need, that the public-private partnerships are in place, and that we're all sharing and collaborating so that we can actually get these boats up in the rising tides.
It's really interesting. If you look at the data on company formation, we had this fantastic period all the way through to about 2021, where we just saw more and more quantum companies being created. And I would have to say that there's an element of this that you'd have to look to the national strategies in the US and more broadly internationally. It's a little bit of a different dynamic today, isn't it? There's not as much company formation. We see a lot of mergers and acquisitions. That's a sign, I guess, of the market maturing. But you also mentioned a need to rise a tide, to create more companies. What can we do in Palm Beach to actually make that happen?
Well, this is the start, right? I mean, I'm so impressed that we still have so many people here this afternoon. Fabulous. But you started our chat by saying that you and Evan were concerned that you might not have 100 people at your first Quantum Beach. We sold out. We've got a wait list. I hope you guys will come back and do this, with us again next year, and probably have to put more seats or go to a different venue. Again, it's information. What the Secretary of State and Bob with the Florida Opportunities Fund with us today is phenomenal. There's going to be 2 more, I think, panels with some more announcements that are really exciting. Again, it starts with the intellectual capital that's being deployed right now with a marquee event like this. The human capital aspect, I'm very excited about what's going on with the university system and the alliance that will be here in the state as well as in the county. But of course, we need to get roundtables together of some of the most influential decision makers that happen to have homes here, and say, what next? What can we do even bigger? And let's not forget, there is a little thing called the Winter White House that's also here. And if we talk about policy and we talk about the reauthorization of the Quantum Initiative Act and the importance of all this stuff, it is kind of ironic that we're all here in a very, very, very small, concentrated area. You mentioned international. Over my left shoulder, I don't know if everyone's seen that this is the International Year of Quantum Science and Technology, right, from the UN. Can you tell us a little bit more of how that has been led and who's spearheading it, with your British accent?
Well, this was a fun one. 10, 11 years ago, it was the International Year of Light. Light is a wonderful thing, and it powers a lot of what we do in quantum. So it was a very natural thing to lobby at the UN and UNESCO level for this to be the International Year of Quantum. As part of that, we've been very proud to be a founding partner, build out a streaming documentary to tell the story of the change makers across quantum. But I'll tell you, it hasn't been easy. And I'll kind of explain why. When you hear these remarkable technologies, these remarkable ideas, I think we all quite rightly a little bit allergic to hype. We get a bit concerned. It all sounds a bit too good. Can we really stop having to use data centers and be able to use absolutely zero energy? Can it really run on 6 or 7 hairdryers, as I think someone very well articulated? Well, I think the answer is yes, and the reason for that is something like the International Year of Quantum is so important to get a broader community understanding the potential of this kind of technology. And I would say that it's been particularly lovely today to see how many people outside of the quantum community, the Q2Q as was said earlier, are here to really learn more about how to apply it. So it is a big start, but we've got a long journey to go.
Absolutely.
So
Yep.
speaking of long journeys to go,
Yes.
it is a long journey to do your graduate studies, to then have an idea, to spin it out, and then go build a public company. So take us through that journey, and how can Quantum Coast Capital fit in that broader journey?
So I think the fact that we've meshed together a lot of initiatives just here today in the Kravis Center Cohen Pavilion is bringing together, again, an awareness of where we can start early on with students, academics, educators, and business leaders to get these ideas that are really in front of us, right? We need to then have access to quantum systems, period, full stop, right? So this state needs to, wants to, is leaning towards getting that network effect in place. You'll hear more about it. Then educating, accelerating, incubating, doing as much as we can, whether it be through cloud-based access or actual physical, in a room, like-minded individuals who are doing things. From that, we will then be able to build quickly on the actual ideas, companies, workforce development that we are planning to have all here in the state of Florida, and quickly scale. When that happens, magic happens. When that happens, you don't want to hear hype, but you'll start to see capital markets and fund flows, exceptionally strong. So some of the data that you had stated at the beginning of this chat are, global data points, right? I would like to start, as a challenge to myself, having a Florida metric. I think that Bob probably wants to hear that from us. I think Secretary Kelly probably wants to hear that from us. I think it would be something that would be phenomenal for Kelly Smallridge and the Business Development Board if we are able to actually say, these are the names of the people, the founders, the universities, colleges that they've come from. This is who started the funding. This is how we've incubated and accelerated them. And then this is the actual headquarters with X amount of employees over the next 3 to 5 years. And then everything that spins out from that is just gravy. I believe it is going to be in Palm Beach County. I don't have to say that it's Palm Beach County, it's Florida, but at the same time, there's just a really good opportunity here with the Lambda Rail and all the access points to really explore and compound all of that. So you say long road. I don't think it's as long a road as it maybe could be if we get the right decision makers in the community, in the room together, and get this thing off the ground. Yeah,
thank you for saying that. And I think one of the things we are asked to do is quantify the impact of quantum, which is when someone first asked me 3 years ago to kind of work that out, it kind of slightly fell off my chair. But when you actually look into it, you can put numbers to this. What we typically find is the kind of economic multipliers for investing in real quantum programs. And by that, I mean the systems, the workforce development, everything that comes along with it in a region. Those multipliers are between 5 and 10 times. That is a fantastic return on taxpayer money. Why? Well, we're doing foundational technology. We're addressing some of the largest enterprises, and we all know the multipliers of investing in universities locally. So I think it is really important to underpin that. The second point I'd like to make is, I don't know if anyone saw those T-shirts, which was, there will only ever be 3 computers. Right? I'm sure, there's someone in the quantum community has done exactly the same thing with quantum computers. And I really want to piggyback on one of your points, which is, it is absolutely critical that we get real quantum devices, quantum networking test beds, quantum computers, optical tables, you name it. We need to have real world equipment and devices here to test on and use and drive impact. From our experience in working across all sorts of geographies, one of the challenges is that there is a feeling that one can have this very separated connection with quantum that you can kind of just look at it and do a consulting paper and go, yes, we have done quantum. And it doesn't work like that. So one of my other recommendations would be absolutely invest now. I think that there will be 100 quantum devices sold next year. There was about 10 3 or 4 years ago. So now is a time to move.
And what is the price point on those systems, range?
It's a very good question. So you can actually get access to devices for hundreds of thousands of dollars, which is very much in line with the kind of traditional programs you'll use with, Gurobi and classical computing. So it's an easy access point, and you can use hyperscalers, you can go direct to the vendors. But if you want to procure real quantum devices, some of the best devices in the world are in the tens of millions of dollars. But the way to look at these is part of a broader state investment program.
Absolutely. Well, I will say this. Florida has done a lot already. So perhaps we haven't shouted it from the rooftops yet, but the state has been investing for years. We are now asking for that J-curve to take off. That's all. And we're really excited to be part of it.
Absolutely. So, I wanted to wrap up here and see if you had any questions from the audience, and then we'll do some closing remarks. You're going to have to, we'll go here. We're going to have to shout.
Thank you very much. So, I don't represent FAU, but I am faculty at FAU. It seems like with the price points of $20 to $40 million for quantum machines, we're going to have to do public-private partnerships. And I love the fact that we can just plug them in and we can have our universities talking to each other on a quantum network immediately. So what needs to happen for the public-private partnerships on the private side? We know we need to have legislative movement, but what does it have to have on the private side other than lobbying the public side?
That's a great question. So the best private companies will be heavily leaning into a region, understanding the actual requirements of what is needed, very specific to the region. So I'll give you an example, right? It is not good enough to turn up and just say, yeah, we can solve some problems. The problems need to be, what are we going to drive in terms of the workforce development? What are we going to drive in terms of research? We're going to have that with buy-in from the universities, as you mentioned, and we're going to solve problems which are very relevant to the taxpayer funds which have come into this from the region, right? So, typically where we see best practice is where specific applications and use cases are defined to the particular region. So we should look at what is specific to Palm Beach that is relevant for things like quantum technology. And I'm sure within the room where we started with writing on the cards, there'll be many there which are highly relevant. We had a question over here.
And we've got to watch time.
Yeah.
Thank you for this. I'm curious to get your perspective on where you think long-term value captured in this industry will accrue. Is it the hardware providers that we've seen speak today? Is it at the application layer? Curious from your portfolio. You guys are obviously playing across the stack, but in a long-term end state, what do you think makes the most sense?
So I'll take the first stab, and then maybe you can jump on too. So a lot of people feel that they make the most revenue off of the application side, right? So it's the software, it's the commercialization, it's the end user. We're not there yet, right? So if we invest in the early stage app side of the quantum-inspired tech, you're going to be coming in at very, very, very low valuations, below market. So there's a huge multiplier effect to that. That said, we, again, need to all lean in on all the different modalities, on the hardware as well. Those companies are probably a little bit later stage for myself and my colleagues. But that being said, the revenue is still very, I think, small and under what the impact will be of these computers. So there is a play for both. Again, we're early stage investors, so we would tend to do something only up to maybe a Series A, and there's follow-ons all along. So we will have that patient and double down capital. There is also a program that is called the Office of Strategic Capital, and it's for critical technology areas that specific critical technology plays can get through the SBA monies into these investment vehicles. that would in turn actually give you leverage on early stage, which is a big multiplier on return. So that's something that's just a nuance to the venture side. I don't know if you had a specific, and I know they're buzzing at me, but if you had a specific thought on valuations. To me, this is still a low valuation to impact-driven opportunity. So I'm still extremely bullish, even on the public traded companies.
So I think we could talk about this for hours. So I think we're gonna wrap up now. I just wanted to say thank you very much. And look, for everyone who's interested to getting the real expertise and how one looks at investing in early stage quantum, I really encourage you to spend time with Hillary, Dimitri, and Matt, all from Quantum Coast Capital, who are here today. So please, a round of applause for Hillary, and thank you so much.
And thank you to Quantum Insider.